I wanted to share another story with you all. And this is a story of how I came to really my first experience of choosing to be responsible for my life and what we could call spiritual sovereignty and body autonomy. And, as I look back on my journey, and I'm sure this is true in all of our lives, but when I really look back on the time of my life where I was in the deepest healing crisis, and where I had been spiraling down for year upon year of this really severe endocrine disorder that I had. I had been for a few years in this. So this was like this experience happened 7 years into my journey. And I was living in Boulder, Colorado, going to Naropa University. And I'd been working with a team of naturopaths. There was a naturopath office, and they were so kind because at the time I was putting myself through school and I had almost no money. And I really couldn't afford medical care within like Western medicine, let alone naturopaths. But these really kind women who owned this office gave me not just a discount, but allowed me to do that discount on credit. And so I went to see them twice a month. Sorry, twice a week for years. After about 2 years of going twice a week and making no improvement, in fact, just getting worse, they're basically like, Robin, you're the hardest client that we've ever had. Like everything we're trying just doesn't seem to land for your body. And they were still supporting me, but it was clear that, they just weren't quite sure what to do with me. And they had a new naturopath come on board, and he was just out of school, and he was a really nice guy. He seemed to be very well trained, and I felt comfortable with him. And I think after these couple of years of working with the two other women, that basically they might have just been a little bit tired of seeing me that much and frustrated that they couldn't help me more. So I started seeing him, and I came in for my session that this one particular day, and he's like, "So how's it going?" And I was like, "Well, this is happening and this is happening, and I was trying this, but it doesn't really seem to be working." And I kind of went into like the state that I lived in at that time, which was, one of feeling pretty overwhelmed, pretty scared, pretty victimized by what was happening, to be honest. And so, after I shared my story, this man looked at me. He was like, Robin, I see that you're really trying. I can really tell that you're trying. It's like, but you're not giving it 100%. And to heal what you've got going on is going to take 100%. And so I like immediately like was shocked and then started crying. And he put the acupuncture needles in my body, and I was lying on the acupuncture table and crying and trying to not disturb the needles too much because it would hurt if I touched them. But I realized as I was lying there that he was absolutely correct, that he was being truthful with me in a way that nobody else had dared, or if they did, I certainly couldn't hear them. But for whatever reason, I could hear him. And I realized that I was definitely not being responsible for 100% of my experience. And got an opportunity to see what I was creating through my experience of feeling like it was somebody else's responsibility. Like my health, my inner state was better cared for by a doctor or a naturopath or somebody else who, wasn't some 21-year-old kid just trying to get it together and make enough money and to put themselves through school and eat, let alone heal such an intense disorder. And so as lying on the bed, I made a turnaround and I was like, okay, I'm just going to see what happens if I choose to be responsible for everything I experience. It's not fair, obviously, but you know what? Life isn't fair. And I'm not causing this on any level that I'm conscious of, but I can still choose to be responsible for it. And what would my life be like if I just started to choose to be responsible for everything I experienced? And looking back, I actually did that. Like I actually shifted and began at 21 this process of seeing the places where I was not being responsible and choosing to give my healing and give myself 100%. And that meant 100% responsibility, which was not the weird cycle of like, somehow I must be wrong and I need to punish myself because I'm creating this illness or whatever other new age ideas about disease and health and creating your own reality on that level, which I'd really been in. But instead, just like without ideas or stories about why, what happens when I choose to be fully responsible for everything. And looking back, that was a pivotal moment. I still had like a fairly severe disorder for the next 3 years. However, that moment was when that downward spiral just began to arc a little bit up. It was like just began to gain some traction. And just at that point, I'd been spiraling down for so long that that little bit of traction was incredible. And then a little bit more and a little bit more. And it was a few years slog. I'm going to be honest with you, but it was from a whole different perspective. So for me, this sovereignty piece is not necessarily glamorous. It's much more practical. It's more like rolling up my sleeves and looking myself in the heart, in the mirror. It's like, okay, it's like I'm the only one who can be the steward of this life. And then from there, what happens? And for me, what happened was this new arc of healing. And that eventually brought me to the plants and the sacred plant medicines. And that eventually brought me to, the full embodied transformation of my whole being and being able to share these with you now. So that's one of my stories about sovereignty and personal responsibility. Thank you so much for listening. Ayumasi Kanapa. We're all one family.